There are people in your life right now who smile at you, who ask how you're doing, who call you friend. And yet, beneath that surface, something darker festers. They don't love you. They don't even tolerate you. They hate you. And the worst part? You're letting them stay close. Stay till the end, because number 5 is the one most people never notice. 1. The perfection of their mask. When someone close to you secretly hates you, their behavior becomes too polite, too measured, too perfect. There's an uncanny quality to their warmth, like watching someone perform humanity rather than embody it. You know what I'm talking about. That colleague who greets you with the exact same enthusiasm every single day. That friend whose voice shifts into a particular register whenever you enter the room. There's a stiffness to their movements around you, as if they're constantly monitoring themselves. What you're witnessing is the persona in overdrive. Carl Jung spoke about this mask we all wear for the world. But when hatred lives in the shadow, when resentment festers in the unconscious, the mask must work twice as hard to contain it. They smile wider because the truth beneath is too ugly to let slip. Every compliment is rehearsed. Every gesture calculated. That's not connection. That's containment. And your body knows it. You tense when they're near. Your energy drains after spending time with them. That's not paranoia. That's your unconscious trying to protect you from something your conscious mind doesn't want to accept. 2. They celebrate your struggles. Listen carefully to how they respond when you fail. Do they offer comfort that feels strangely satisfied? Do their eyes light up just a moment too long when you share bad news? Pay attention to the micro-expressions. That flash of something before the concern settles on their face. The way they lean in when you're describing your problems. The questions they ask, digging deeper into your pain under the guise of wanting to help. This is the shadow revealing itself through schadenfreude. Your pain validates something in them, some unconscious resentment they've been feeding in the dark. Jung understood that what we repress doesn't disappear. It sinks into the shadow, and there it grows. It watches. It waits. When you stumble, their shadow gets permission to smile. They'll disguise it as empathy, but underneath you'll sense something else. A warmth, a satisfaction. Your suffering soothes something broken in them. Notice how they remember every setback you've had. They can recall your failures with startling accuracy, bringing them up months later, often disguised as concern. But why do they need to keep reminding you of your lowest moments? 3. The silence that screams. They never ask about your wins. Your promotion goes unmentioned. Your achievement hangs in the air, acknowledged with a nod, and then nothing. The conversation shifts. They will talk for hours about trivial things, but your success makes them go quiet. You announce something you're proud of, and you're met with a hollow "that's great" before they immediately change the subject. Or worse, they turn it back to themselves, and suddenly your moment becomes about them. This is projection in its rawest form. Your light reminds them of their darkness. When you rise, they're forced to confront what Jung called the inferior function, the undeveloped parts of themselves they've abandoned. Those dreams they gave up on, that potential they never realized. Rather than face that wound, they simply refuse to see you. They minimize your accomplishments. Well, you had connections. The timing was right. In their silence, you become invisible. And that invisibility is their revenge. Watch how animated they become when discussing other people's achievements. But when it comes to you, static, that contrast tells you everything. 4. They never remember. They forget your birthday. They forget what you told them last week. They forget the things that matter to you. But here's what's strange. They remember everything else. They recall obscure details about other people, about movies, about conversations from months ago. Their memory is selective. And you're not selected. You mention your mother's surgery, something you're worried about. 2 weeks later, it's gone from their mind completely. Yet they remember that someone at work is allergic to shellfish. They remember the exact date of some random event. The unconscious doesn't forget. Chooses. What we hate, what we unconsciously want to eliminate, we erase from our inner world. Jung spoke about the psyche's self-protective mechanisms, and one of the most subtle is this kind of erasure. By forgetting you, they're performing a psychological vanishing act. In their inner landscape, you're already gone. You're just waiting for the outer world to catch up to what their unconscious has already decided. 5. They mirror your energy backwards. This is the one most people miss. When you're happy, they become subdued. When you're struggling, suddenly they're vibrant, helpful, alive. It's as if your emotional state controls theirs, but in reverse. You rise, they sink. You sink, they soar. You walk into a room energized, excited, and you watch the light drain from their face. Not dramatically, subtly. They become quiet, reserved. It's like your joy sucks the oxygen out of their lungs. But when you're down, when you're tired, defeated, overwhelmed, they come alive. They're suddenly available. They're warm. They're engaged. And you might think, they really care about me. But watch the pattern over months and years. Notice how they orbit your pain but retreat from your joy. This is the shadow's dance. Jung taught that the shadow contains not just our repressed darkness, but our disowned potential. Someone who secretly hates you often envies something in you they've rejected in themselves. Your joy is a mirror they can't bear to look into. So unconsciously they invert the dynamic. They feed on your pain because it balances the scales of their inner inadequacy. When you're suffering, you're no longer a threat. Your healing threatens the equilibrium, so without even realizing it, they subtly sabotage. A discouraging word here, a doubt planted there. Watch this pattern. It doesn't lie. 6. The poisoned compliment. They praise you, but the words always carry venom. You're so confident. I could never be that bold. That outfit is brave. You really don't care what people think, do you? These aren't compliments. They're psychological daggers wrapped in silk. The technique is subtle. They're saying something positive so you can't call them out. But the subtext is clear. You're too much. You're careless. You're naive. I admire how you just put yourself out there. I'm too self-aware for that. Translation: you're foolish and lack self-awareness. It must be nice not to overthink things like I do. Translation: you're simple. I'm complex and intelligent. Jung called this the animus or anima attack, the way our inner complexes weaponize language. When the shadow wants to wound but the persona must maintain civility, this is how it speaks. Through implications, through backhanded compliments, through praise that makes you feel worse than an insult would. If you feel worse after their compliments than before, trust that feeling. Your unconscious knows what just happened. 7. They need you to need them. Here's the paradox. They hate you, but they can't let you go. They position themselves as indispensable. They offer help you didn't ask for. They insert themselves into your life with an urgency that feels suffocating. Why? Because your dependence is their power. They want to be your savior while secretly hoping you'll need saving forever. They'll offer advice that keeps you stuck. They'll provide solutions that create new problems. This is the negative mother or father complex projected outward. Jung understood that some people need others to remain wounded because it validates their role. Your independence threatens who they believe themselves to be. Your strength makes them unnecessary. So unconsciously they sabotage. They create problems they can solve. They amplify your fears. They keep you small so they can feel big. It's not love. It's control dressed up as care. Notice how they react when you solve your own problems. When you grow past the point where you need their input, do they celebrate your autonomy? Or do they become strangely distant? Do they find new problems to worry about on your behalf? 8. The invisible competition. Everything becomes a competition even when you're not competing. You mention something you're working on, and suddenly they're working on something similar but bigger, better. You share a struggle, and theirs is always worse. You share a joy, and theirs is somehow diminished by it. This is the shadow in full operation. They can't celebrate you because in their unconscious, your win is their loss. Life has become a zero-sum game where your light automatically means their darkness. Jung would call this the problem of opposites living in the unconscious. They've split the world into winners and losers, and they cannot allow themselves to occupy the lower position. So when you rise, they must rise higher. You buy a car, they buy a better one shortly after. You announce a vacation. Suddenly they're planning something more exotic. The mimicry is aggressive, almost mocking. What they don't realize is that this behavior reveals their inner poverty. Secure people don't need to constantly measure themselves against others. But someone who secretly hates you lacks that security. Your existence is a wound to them. 9. They remember your worst. They have perfect recall of every mistake you've ever made, every embarrassing moment, every time you were less than your best. And they bring these moments up, not maliciously, at least not overtly, but casually, in front of others, as jokes, as remember when. They're the curator of your failures, the keeper of your shame, and they make sure these memories never fade. This is the shadow's need to keep you fixed in place. Jung understood that we all have parts of ourselves we're ashamed of, but someone who loves you holds those parts with gentleness. Someone who hates you freezes you in your worst moments and makes sure you never escape them. Remember when you said that stupid thing? Remember when you failed that test? These aren't innocent reminiscences. They're psychological anchors, keeping you tethered to a version of yourself you've outgrown. What makes this particularly cruel is that they never remember your best moments with the same clarity. Your triumphs are forgotten. Your growth is invisible. But that one time you stumbled, immortalized. The people who secretly hate you are not your enemies in the obvious sense. They're mirrors. Broken mirrors, yes, but mirrors nonetheless. Jung believed that everything in our outer world reflects something in our inner world. So when you find yourself surrounded by hidden hatred, the question isn't just about them. It's about you. Why did you let them close? What in you needed their dysfunction? What were you avoiding in yourself by focusing on their darkness? Maybe you needed to feel needed, so you surrounded yourself with people who required you to stay small. Maybe you feared your own power, so you chose relationships where your light was constantly dimmed. Maybe you were running from your own capacity for hatred, projecting onto them what you couldn't face in yourself. The truth is, you always knew. Some part of you, the part Jung called the self, that deeper, wiser aspect of your being, has been whispering the truth all along. You felt it in your body. You saw it in your dreams. You knew in those quiet moments. You just weren't ready to listen, because listening means change. Listening means letting go. Listening means facing the terrifying question. If I remove these people, who am I? Now you are ready. The mask is cracking. The shadow is emerging into light. And that's where the real work begins. Not in pointing fingers at those who hate you, but in asking why their hatred found a home in your life. Not in cutting people off with righteous anger, but in understanding what aspect of yourself you were betraying by keeping them close. The darkness isn't out there. It never was. It's the unwatched space between who we pretend to be and who we actually are. It's the gap between our persona and our shadow, between our conscious intentions and our unconscious patterns. And the only way out is through. If this opened your eyes, subscribe, like and share so more minds can awaken. Because we're not here to make you comfortable. We're here to make you conscious. And consciousness, as Jung knew, is the most uncomfortable gift we can receive. It's also the only one worth having. Goodbye until the next video tomorrow.